You are not ready for what Paul did and said in this episode of Mushoku Tensei. This is unironically his best moment. That sword analogy is sending me the longer I think of it. We all know Paul has two wives, and Paul ain't a blind man, and he can see how Roxy be swooning over our boy. And we already know how much our boy worships Roxy, though I think he's in the mindset that that's his master and he doesn't have a shot. But yeah, he loves Sylphie. Don't get it twisted. But like father, like son, it ain't gonna be a monogamous marriage. Let's be honest. The fact that Paul, the way he explains it, because he's like, I can't give you the full talk because it's probably gonna cause drama in the party right now. So let's just chill. You don't want to drop it on your master that you're already married, but you also probably want to bang her. I have two swords now. I used to only use one sword. Now I have two. Deep down, Paul was probably hoping that Rudy would say, damn, Dad, that's really cool, because he gets very happy when his son praises him. Rudy, being in his dense harem protagonist mode, doesn't understand the analogy at all. But we all can. The swords were wives. And Paul couldn't be prouder. I freaking love these two together. Full live reactions over on Patreon if you want some full and good thought to any of this Mushoku Tensei episode's gonna be over there exclusively. Great episode. They kickstart in the best way possible. I honestly think if Rudy would have been in his ED arc and Roxy not recognized him, he probably would have ended himself right then and there. Luckily, we've healed and overcome some trauma, so he just throws up and makes a mess of himself, but that's hilarious, and it's believable, to be honest. Now, if Rudy would have been next to Paul in that scene, she probably would have been like, wait a second, you look like him, oh shit, now I realize. But if you haven't seen someone since they were a young lad, and they've grown up, I mean, it's not like it's the era of social media where you always have a constant reminder of how someone looks. Like, this is years, like, faces are gonna start becoming a blur. So for her, it's just some handsome guy who's like, thank you for saving us. But like, she had no idea, and the heartbreak, and just the crushing realization, because this man made a goddamn altar for her, and she didn't recognize him at first. And then the fact that every step of the way after that, she's just like so adorably flustered. Like the mannerisms, the way her eyes will like skate back and forth, or just like the fact that she asks him on a date, that like, hey, when this is all said and done, you want to go clear a labyrinth with just the two of us? My boy can't take a hint, but bless him. At first, I thought it was, okay, they need 3 days for her to prepare, and then they'll go back into the dungeon. We'll go in, and then we'll just tackle it. But the thing that's really interesting is the fact that they actually go back and forth for resupplying and stuff like that. You don't really see that in anime, in terms of like, oh, if there's a labyrinth, a dungeon, you go in, either you die or you succeed. Like, that's it. There's not really backtracking. When characters try to backtrack, it usually doesn't work out. This, it does, and that's really interesting, because then it also allows for, like, cute little moments where they're gathering some supplies, like, oh, this would be a great sword for Eloise. Oh, that's very expensive, but it would be a great sword for her. And just everything about it was just so charming. And the idea that we get to what seems to be the end, and there's a couple of teleporters, and Rudy's pretty much like, I'm gonna think about this. Of course, most of them will just, they think, hey, let's just maybe flip a coin for it. Rudy knows something's off, and the idea of how he comes to that realization after the greatest analogy a dad's ever told his son, there's a hidden staircase which leads to the right teleporter. This is a very tricky dungeon to clear. This labyrinth, I would understand why people would die in it, because you're constantly being teleported around, and you don't know where the actual solution is. The thing is I don't have a lot of faith for this arc. I mean, I assume Roxy and Rudy make it out, but I'm under the assumption everyone else has a death flag over their head. I'm convinced Zenith is already dead. Like, I'm like, if she ain't, like, what the hell has she been doing in this dungeon, man? Does she got a whole farm situation going on? How's she eating? How's she drinking water? I don't know. I'm going in with the worst expectations, because then they can't hurt me too bad, because I already assumed they were dead to begin with. So every episode that allows me to enjoy them just makes me happy. But this is troubling. Very troubling, because, that portal didn't look friendly. Now, granted, it's probably the correct portal, but, like, that portal didn't look friendly. So what type of boss monstrosity are we gonna fight? I don't know. But it was cool seeing, like, the fact that even though Rudy's come a long way, he's not perfect. He doesn't know everything. There's this moment when there's these, like, suits of armor coming. He's like, okay, I'm gonna blast them with some stone. Don't do that. They'll reflect it. Instead, hold them still so that they can attack. And then once it's closer, then you do this. It's just nice to see that, like, there's actually a lot of thought put into the combat of the show. Despite it not having a lot of combat, when it is there, it's always well thought out and well animated, and it always steals the show. Something I'm really happy that Rudy pointed out, because I definitely would have realized what they were implying in the moment, was what they said about trauma. So it's like, hey, in 3 days, we're gonna go back into the labyrinth. And Rudy's like, hey, is she gonna be properly healed? We should probably take a bit more time. And they're talking about how, like, there's this curse. Like, if you wait too long to go back in, you'll be cursed. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. That's how they view trauma in this world. And I'm like, that is interesting, because I wouldn't have gotten that. I would have took it literally like there was a curse, but it's like, of course, trauma in a magical world could easily be described and explained as something like that, because it's not like they have therapists and, like, you know, psychology majors in this world. It's a lot of it's going to be taken quite literally. Of, I have voices in my head, I scream at night because of what happened to me in that dungeon. You gotta tackle it head first so you can overcome it before it consumes you. Just really cool stuff. But this was a great episode. It's weird because it almost has, like, this vibe that there's no immediate threat. Like, you're just going through with this, like, carefree attitude where we feel good, Paul's looking good. Paul, like, Rudy asked Paul in this episode, hey, have you gotten stronger? And he's like, no, like, if anything, I've gotten weaker. But when you had that weight lifted off your shoulders, not only did you think your wife's probably dead, you lost an incredibly powerful mage. We've gotten her back. Things are looking hopeful. In return, he's probably going to feel a lot sharper. It was just a comfy episode. You know it's going to get bad. A blind man can see it's going to get bad the same way a blind man can see that Roxy wants to take a ride on the Rudy train. Let's be honest. But it still was a very comfy episode that was quite fun, with some funny moments, some great father bonding experience, and I don't know, man, this is legitimately one of the most entertaining episodes of Season 2. 100%. Let me know what you thought down below, though, of this week's episode, and, what was your favorite moment? The sword analogy was mine, but let me know down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll just give you a video shout out. So today we have Omega Alpha 83, Winter Naomi Vera, Vuko, Yori, Lizette MT, Master Creator, and Arazito. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.